New York, big city of dreams. New York, big city of dreams.
What's going on? This is Jay Ellis from the Nick of Time show here, giving you that Knicks talk just in the nick of time. And we're here to talk about some fun free agent stuff. It's the offseason. It's that time of year to talk about what's about to happen, to get excited about the possibilities. So we're going to break it down. Before I do that, I'm going to introduce you to my guys. First and foremost, it's the man, the myth, the legend, the guy with the stats and the facts.
Ryan G in the building. Glad to be talking Knicks today. Let's go.
Let's go. You already know it's the Latin assassin, my man Lee Escobedo with the fresh KOT. Snap back on the dome. What's going on?
Got my fresh KOT gear on. Was wearing my Brunson jersey early, walking around Dallas. It was a beautiful day. Had a lot of fun roasting these Mad fans, being down 0-3. Now I'll be happy to talk about the Knicks. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, let's roast them. All right. All right. Of course, you know, man, we might have to get Fritz a KOT. All right. Snapback. All right. Of course, you already know it's the fifth Beatle. The man. The plan. Our capologist. Our guy, Fritz Alessandro. What's going on, Fritz?
Hey, what's up? It's never an off season.
Yeah, exactly. It's never an off season. It's a year-round season, baby. So let's get it, man. Shout out to our guy, the best mind in the game, who's now contributing to the KOT show. All right. So I just want to start off by saying you already know it's free agency time. And the thing that is complicated about the free agencies coming in the future, starting this year and even next year, is the cap situation, which is why we have our guy Fritz on here to help us sort out the intricacies of the cap sometimes. So for you guys, we're going to present actually our free agent wings that we feel like we will be able to sign or have a possibility to sign anyway. And this is under the assumption that, you know, we have OG Anunoby here. We also bring back Bojan Bogdanovic, and we also have Hartenstein. Because to be honest, I've seen the rumors flying around, but Ian Begley, our own insider here in New York, he seems pretty confident that we'll bring those guys back. So we're going to operate under the assumption that that's happening. Not saying it's 100% going to happen, but it's a probability. It's a high probability that we will have those guys back. So I just want to toss this to Fritz for a second and just ask you a couple of questions. Because you already know, sure. Considering all those guys are back, we would be over the cap. We're already over the cap. We were over the cap and we'll be into the first apron, correct?
Yes. Yeah, at least the first apron. If we brought everybody back, it would be second apron.
Okay.
So if we're talking OGs re-signed to a new contract around 35, then you're talking about second. So
35 would be second.
Yeah, it's like 35 and everybody came back, Precious came back. We would be in the second.
But I'm assuming Precious isn't coming back. And Alec Burks isn't coming back. That's what I'm assuming anyway.
Yeah.
So assuming we don't bring back Burks and Precious, we would only be in the first
apron.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So I just want to set that preference and make it clear that we can indeed sign the players that we're about to talk about, most likely, if they'd agree to be here for that mid-level exception, even if we do bring back OG Anunoby and Hartenstein and bring back Bojan, which will have us in the first apron. Cool. All right. Let's get to the fun part now that we talked about all the the technical cap stuff. Who do you want to see on the Knicks? All right. Now, for me, for Ryan, for you guys, I felt like that we were in trouble when OG Anunoby went down. We saw it. You saw it during the regular season, and we saw it versus the Pacers. I was personally scared that when OG Anunoby went down versus the Pacers, there was too big of a gap between OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa starting. So I was kind of worried about beating the Pacers. I thought it was still possible, but I was still worried about beating the Pacers. We ended up falling because we didn't have, to me, a two-way wing who can kind of replicate what OG gave us. So for me, I'm thinking about those type of options. So when I think about what we're missing and who we can plug in and who would be in our price range, I went to somebody who I don't see on a lot of lists. Taurean Prince. I went to Taurean Prince. I felt like he had a really good year with the Minnesota Timberwolves a couple of years ago. He went to the Lakers. I know he started out starting and he ended up being benched. And it seemed like he was able to produce a lot more off the bench than starting. But for me, he was a guy who's still been reliable defensively. He's 6'7", so he's not like a short guy. He's a real wing. And he can indeed hit the three. I think he shot, 39% from three for the year. So I'm liking the idea of bringing Taurean Prince here, especially because the Lakers, they brought him in for cheap. Really cheap. I was kind of pissed the way he went over. It's like, wait, I think he only went there for $4 million. So for me, I think you can definitely get him here on a mid-level. Might not even have to be the entire mid-level, depending on how he feels about where the Lakers are going, or if he wants to uproot his family again to actually chase for a ring. Because I feel like the Lakers are kind of in that middle ground where they're just in purgatory. So I like the idea of Taurean Prince, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, if you have any.
I love it. I think it's a very, very affordable deal. He's a solid vet who's played on multiple playoff teams. He's someone who would absolutely accept a bench role and has kind of a quiet demeanor and personality. I think he would be a culture fit. I think Tibbs would like him a lot as well, especially considering he would kind of fill in that Precious role, backing up Randall. He can give you a little bit of that 3-and-D, hit some corner shots. You can see there, he's been a little consistent in the corner, but he's had some really good years in high efficiency in that catch and shoot third, fourth option in a play role. So I like him. He's a really solid defender. I think he would still get cooked by someone like Siakam, but I think he would be a good buy to throw at maybe a Nimhard or even a Halliburton on switches. So overall, really like the addition. I think of all the ones we're going to talk about, he's the most likely to sign for cheap, which might be the biggest plus in his corner.
I agree.
Well, me personally, I mean, looking at it from, I guess, like from a business standpoint, he makes a lot of sense. Wing, got size, he can shoot the three, defends. He's gonna likely come for cheap. So I definitely understand it from a business standpoint and from a need standpoint on the Knicks. When you look at the Knicks roster based on what they were missing last season, I'm just kind of iffy on it just based on his performances with the Lakers last year, because I felt like at times he would disappear in games.
Yeah.
Whether it's offensively, defensively, like sometimes. But then again, like I said, I don't know what was going on with the Lakers, because with the Timberwolves, he did play well. He did play well his years with the Timberwolves, but and with the Lakers, it seemed like there was a lot of coaching problems going on as well. When you listen to LeBron's comments and AD's comments about Darvin Ham's coaches. So I don't know if it's a Lakers organization thing where it's like, you know what, the players didn't mess with the coach, and there was kind of some friction there, and maybe Taurean Prince, wasn't comfortable with the Lakers, and maybe that's what attributed to his, I don't know, in my opinion, poor play last season with the Lakers. But I mean, overall, like if he can get back to his Minnesota production, then I wouldn't mind him on the Knicks.
Yeah. First, I don't know if you have anything to add, or you just move on.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get our bang for a buck out of the mid-level exception. I don't think it's going to be like last year where you're just trying to get one player to take that one spot. And it's good to have players who play multiple positions. So he would be a good fit.
Cool. All right. Anybody else? Ryan G, I know you got somebody in mind. Who do you feel like the Knicks should target as far as a free agent?
Well, we definitely did discuss it before the podcast, and I'm definitely on board with with like a few players in free agency. But for argument's sake, I'm gonna go with Royce O'Neal because I did like the way he played last season, especially with Phoenix during that playoff run that they had. He's a good 3-point shooter. I think he shot 37% from three last season. Overall, he's a 38% 3-point shooter for his career. He's a wing with solid size. He can defend on the perimeter. He can defend multiple positions. And I think he would be a solid guy that you could probably bring in with the mid-level exception. And again, he might be a guy that's not going to take up the whole mid-level exception as well. So to me, I feel like he would be a solid addition for the Knicks in free agency.
I really like the idea of bringing him in. I really do. And the Phoenix Suns, I feel like they're just going to have problems keeping players in general just because I feel like a lot of players just came there because of the idea of that big three. And that idea has since expired and burned up at the flames. I don't think anybody really takes that team seriously anymore. So I can see some players walk in, they're already kind of over the cap. They're gonna have problems keeping people on deals like that. So I feel like he's definitely a person that could be was paid what, $9 million last year. So yeah, I think that's a definitely a viable option. I think he'd be great on the tips.
If we were still on the Donovan Mitchell train, doing moves, like trying to hope that Johnny Bryant is something that would sway Donovan to come over. Obviously, Royce O'Neal would be someone you should add because their relationship goes far back. I believe they played AAU school tournaments together. So for someone who had they have a very good relationship. But we're no longer on the Donovan Mitchell train because, as most insider reports, the Ian Begley, Fred Katz type, the optics have been that he's going to re-sign and take that egregious mega contract from Cleveland that's not paying close to $52 million a year. That being said, I think there are much better options than Royce O'Neal. Got to push back against his success in the playoffs. The first game, he shot 50% from the field and was very effective. Then he had a zero burger, 6 points. One of the games, he had negative 23 plus minus. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that, but he was also getting absolutely cooked every time Anthony Davis was on him, or even Jaden McDaniels had a lot of success in terms of trapping him in those closeouts. So he's not someone that I think is the best option out there. If we end up with him, listen, you don't find a silver lining no matter what, because Tibbs is going to get the best out of the players that brings in, and Leon's going to have him on an efficient deal, or whatever we give up, the assets will be worth the return. So if we end up with him, I'm not upset about it. I just think there are so many better options out there than Royce O'Neal.
So many better options. He's at the end of my list. Okay. So many better options. Let's get to it then. Who's one of those so many better options you feel like is better than Mr. Royce?
Well,
I'm just going to interject right quick. I do find him a better option than Taurean Prince, though, based on what I saw last season. I'm going to say that.
Okay. All right. I like a little bit of the saltiness. So if we're talking about all the points that JL has brought up and the drop-off from OG to Precious, which I agree with 100%. To me, there's another 6'7" wing out there with a 7'3" wingspan that makes a lot of sense as a two-way player, and that is Kelly Oubre Jr., the third best player for the Philadelphia 76ers. He was number 2 in the playoffs in defensive win shares, which is a very important stat in terms of his impact on defense when he was out there, typically guarding our best player for the majority of the series in Jalen Brunson. And it's his defense that makes me really look at having him, because he can replicate that success he had. Really, he gave him multiple looks and multiple schemes against Brunson, and really made life tough for him. And if you didn't have him and OG out there on the floor, or staggered when we're playing guys like Tyrese Halliburton or Jimmy Butler or Steph Curry, I think he's a great option to throw on the little guys to use his size and length, that 7'3" wingspan, to really make things difficult. Now, on offense, he's a mixed bag. He was the Philadelphia 76ers' third best player offensively, averaging around 13 points. His corner three, it was what really threw off his offense. He only shot 33% from corner threes in that series against the Knicks. But only half of his shots were unassisted in the playoffs as well. So I like his ability to generate his own offense. He's been a streaky three-point shooter for the majority of his career, but we saw he was able to score at all three levels, and that Knicks defense collapsed and really crunched down. He was one of only 3 options Embiid and Maxey that was able to get his own bucket, and that helps initiate offense. For most role players on our team are not able to throw an offense. They need Brunson to help generate. So he's someone who can go out there, do a little bit of playmaking, very good in steals, very good in rim protection at his position, and an excellent one-on-one defender and team defender. I would love to add him because I think he would take a pay raise. He only made the veteran minimum $2 million last year on a 1-year tryout deal. So anything's an upgrade in terms financially for him, and the Knicks would give him a shot at a championship.
Yo, I'll say this. I like his attitude. Like, there's something said to me about like those guys who just go after it, and he's one of those guys. Like, even the dust up between him and Dante last season, even though as a competitor, the guy who likes competition and likes dogs, I like the attitude. Personally, against my Knicks, I don't like it. But as a, like, if I'm just being an unbiased guy watching, I like the fact that I'm going to stand up and talk smack and talk to. I like that stuff. So I don't take that anything from. I like anybody on this team has to kind of have that. So when it comes to his personality, I definitely feel like he fits the mold of the Knicks. My thing is always about the shooting. I think everybody I talk about has to have a little bit of shooting in them, because I still feel like there's going to be times where you're going to have to play off Brunson. And even though he can make his own shot, I think the being able to play off Brunson to me is going to be the thing that's going to help me and help the team get better. So I'm not sure how well he can play off Brunson when Brunson gets double. That's he's going to provide more than Precious, that's for sure. He's a little bit more sure of himself. But to me, that's the biggest trepidation I have when it comes to Brandon and Oubre. Although I personally do like him as a player.
Yeah, I like Oubre as a player as well, and he's definitely one of my top choices to bring in free agency. My only thing with Oubre is that although I do like his dog mentality, I do like the fact that, he definitely gets after it on the defensive side of the ball. He can guard multiple positions. I mean, he gave Brunson a whole lot of trouble in that Sixers series.
Mm-hmm.
Brunson really had to work for his shot against Oubre, and great, good defensive player. He gets after it and things of that nature. Just offensively, I'm just kind of iffy on, just for the simple fact that, like JL said, his 3-point shot is not all that great. And then also at times, even against the Knicks in that playoff series, he disappeared at times on offense as well. And he wasn't really consistent getting baskets for the Sixers. So based on the options that's out there, he is one of the better options per se. But I just have, one or two like issues with him on the offense side of the ball, because to me it's like, okay, if you're not going to really contribute a lot on the offense side of the ball, and you're going to disappear at times in games, I at least want you to be a good 3-point shooter. Where it's like, if you're open, I can depend on you to knock in that shot, and that's the only thing. And that's the only thing that's wrong with Oubre. His 3-point shot is not that dependable. That's the only issue I have with Oubre.
Yo, Oubre hits a 3 consistently, he can get it back. Just really. I feel like all the stuff is there. Go ahead, Fritz.
No, I really think Oubre, he's probably looking at a whole mid-level from someone. I know his price tag last year wasn't so high because he signed so late and all the money was gone by the time he signed. So I know a lot of people look at his salary last year and think that would go for this year, but I think he's the type of guy who's going to try to take the whole mid-level from a team.
I have no defense against the shooting splits. I mean, you can look at it on the screen right here. It's not just this season, it's historically as well. He's been a very inconsistent shooter, even at the very high percentage level, which is why I mentioned the corner, because those are so prevalent now in the modern NBA spacing. It's important that he's able to hit those. Precious wasn't. And if he can at least be an upgrade over that, those minutes, which are between 13 to 17 a game, it can become very situational. If he's hot, you leave him in there and you have an incredible, at the very least, decoy. If he's not, our depth, unlike Philly, allows us to sit him and it doesn't throw off our entire scheme. And that's what I think would be the difference maker. The pressure and the usage wouldn't be there in New York as in Philly, and he would have better spacing naturally around him. Guys, not just spacing 3-point shooting percentage, but guys who have volume and who can create off a dribble.
I think my thing is OG Anunoby is going to be a Knick, I think, most likely. We know he's going to be injured. Like we know it. So he's been averaging what 60 something games a season. So there's gonna be a span where we're going to need somebody to play more than 17 minutes. And will you be able to provide enough of an offensive spark to keep other teams honest? If it happens. So that's more what I'm thinking about, which is why I'm just like, I'm not sure. I mean, and to be honest with you, it's kind of tough to find a guy like that for a mid level. There's probably gonna be a little bit of flaws, no matter who we talk about. Like realistically, you'd be like, hey, let's get Herb Williams. I mean, Herb Jones. I mean, I'm sorry, not Herb.
Oh, man, Williams.
Herb Williams. My bad. Nick's on the brain for real. Still, shout out to OG player coach Herb Williams. But realistically, like, yo, let's get Herb Jones. But that's not really realistic for us right now. That's like that would be my ideal, but we kind of have to kind of work with what we have. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how I see it.
Very fair.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I forgot to mention Oubre as well is I just don't know how feasible it is because I think like Fritz said, he's probably going to look for more money, probably take up the whole mid-level exception, and Philly has a lot of money to play with as well. And I think Philly, I don't know what Philly's mindset is, but I would think that based on his performance last season, Philly's going to want to keep him, and I feel like Philly's going to throw the money at him to try to make sure that he's still on the roster. And that makes me kind of iffy on if the Knicks can even try to, pull him away from Philly.
Yeah. Philly's in the driver's seat as far as it goes with free agents. I think they have they have the upper edge on a lot of people. For sure. With that Harden trade just clearing up a lot of cap space. Ritz, what you thinking, man? What you thinking? Who you got on your mind?
Yeah, I was thinking about Isaac Okoro. It's not really a splashy name. But as you said, OG is gonna miss some time, and you need someone who could play defense when he's out. He's only 6'5", but he's a good driver of the basketball. He doesn't give you that 3-point shot that well, but
I
he
mean,
definitely play defense.
I mean, the thing is, he's 6'5". I'd rather have a wing. But the wingspan makes you go, maybe we can still get away with it because of how just this is his build in general. He's like a bigger guy. He has a long wingspan, and plus the 3-point shot has actually come a long way. This season he shot 39% from 3 for the season. I think even in the playoffs he shot well from 3. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He's also restricted.
Oh, whoopsie! So... Look at that! Fell off the cliff in the corner in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's also restricted. So the Cavs, the Cavs are in the driver's seat with that. You just don't know if they're going to renounce him. That's the only way I'm really thinking that he would. They would renounce him if they're trying to make other moves. Since they're trying to re-sign, what's his name? Since they're trying to re-sign Donovan Mitchell, perhaps they're trying to do other moves to make it, more attractive.
Right.
That they may just let him go to make some other moves.
Yeah. See, look at this 30%. See, when the pressure's on, this is funny because we just having this conversation. I was just having this conversation with Ryan G before the show started. I was like, I kind of have Isaac on my radar. He's shooting threes more. He's known as a defender, but I still don't trust him. Look at his 3-point shooting numbers in the playoffs. Cratered. Because my game plan, even with him in the game shooting threes, is I don't care. Let him keep shooting. Let him keep shooting until he loses confidence. But yeah, he intrigued me. I'm not gonna lie, he did. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, I mean Isaac, he's a good young player from the standpoint of like Fritz said, he's a guy that he's gonna give you defense he's gonna play defense. He's gonna defend. His 3-point shot did improve. He can be a good slasher at times and things of that nature. But to me, Okoro's like one of those guys. I call them the deceptive shooters. You know what I mean? It's like you look at the stats, and you're like, oh. he can knock in the three and things of that nature. But it's like, what kind of things is he knocking down? Like, is he knocking down like big threes, major threes, or is he knocking down threes just during the span of the game and the percent just
Yeah,
kind of
first
like
quarter.
out?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly, as the game goes on. And as JL just showed, like, yeah, his 3-point shot may have improved, but during pressure situations, clutch situations, the 3-point shot is not there yet. So I
Yeah.
mean, he's not really one of my top targets. Would I be mad if the Knicks signed him in free agency? I wouldn't be mad because it would give the Knicks, a guy that could defend and, play on the wing and things of that nature. But just for the simple fact that the shooting still kind of scares me a bit, especially as you can see in pressure situations, I'm still kind of off on that.
It's a hell no for me, but there is one really bright spot, and that's I think he would take a lot of that. He would bring back the play that Obi did as a slasher. Ryan touched on it, the slashing and backdoor cutting that Hartenstein had a little bit of that two-man game at the nail, finding Obi in the backdoor to be able to get those easy dunks. That's something that I think Okoro has done well in Cleveland as well. And Cleveland doesn't really even have the playmaking that New York does. So I think we would be able to implement him in a lot of interesting ways that would bring some like diversity to our offense and bring a level of athleticism that we don't really have right now when OG's sitting at the wing position. So I like that, but I'm with you guys. It's just the eye test. You don't have to look at the stats. You can tell that, yeah, his threes aren't very impactful. He's also a very scared shooter. And the fact that he's been taken out of the rotation last year's playoff when they played us, he was basically out of the rotation. He was out of his starting lineup by, I think, game 3 and out of the rotation by game 4. So it's not a real good look when that's the case. And he's so young in his career. And there's no reason why he shouldn't not just consistently have that starting 3 spot, but grow in his game. With playing along with 2 playmakers, to me, that's not a good sign. And I think his has a very, very low floor.
Yeah, I remember even when the Knicks played him earlier in the season, he was hitting threes on us. I was like, "What is happening?" And I was watching the game like, "I don't care, still leave him open." And eventually, he left Earth, and eventually he came back down.
The curse of Obi Toppin.
Damn,
Very similar.
Oh man,
damn, Obi caught a random straight.
They have very similar games. Very similar.
Interesting. He's definitely better defender than Obi. I feel like Obi's better.
For sure.
Better
Talking about offense.
in the open floor. But I hear you. All right. Any honorable mentions? I feel like Ryan G has a few because we've talked about this before the show started.
Well, if I could go to honorable mentions, Caleb Martin's one of them. He has a player option, and I'm thinking more than likely he's going to probably opt out. I think he was making near $7 million this season, so I'm not sure how much the market would demand for his services. But if it's within the mid-level exception, I don't know if the Knicks can pry him away from the Heat. But if possible, I would definitely bring Caleb Martin into the squad if it's feasible.
Yeah. His shooting has kind of fallen off this season too. It's kind of weird, but I know enough about him to know that he's a gamer.
Yes.
So it's almost like the opposite of Okoro. It's like I'm looking at the shooting, like I don't know. But you watch him play, it's like, well, when the game's on the line, I feel like he might hit it. It's kind of it's pretty much the opposite to me. Yeah. All right.
I have one that is someone I absolutely do not want us to go after, and I'm so glad none of us said it. That's Miles Bridges. He's an available free agent. He's probably he might be the most talented free agent.
Yes.
Period. He put up gaudy stats last year with Charlotte. He also, when he came back from the well-deserved suspension, not long enough suspension, he looked like he had worked on his game a little bit too. I saw him score in a mid-range in the games I watched with Charlotte, and I did not remember seeing him not really getting a bucket outside transition or a 3-point shot. So he might be becoming a 3-level scorer, but those type of personalities and those type of risks, like culture risks, hopefully we've left that in the past. And I think Leon Rose has implemented a culture here where those are the type of characters we're looking to go after. No matter how much better they make this an on-court product, the off-the-court optics matter just as much, to me, more. And there's other ways for us to win without having to add a dirtbag like that.
It's funny, Ryan was around when I was lobbying to have Miles Bridges here. Of course, before all this stuff happened, I was like, man, I just feel like he has that where he can create eventually, and he's obviously he's shown that. And I felt like I kind of felt vindicated. I was like, damn, I was right about this kid. He's nice, but man, that whole thing just kind of ruined my perception of him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him this season. If another team picks him up or whatever. But
Matter of fact, that draft year was the battle of the bridges. It was like either McCallum or Miles.
Yeah, and I was going for Miles hard. I really was. Retrospect, both of them would have been a good choice, talent wise. Anyway. But yeah, that's a good one, Lee. I'm kind of cool on everybody else, to be honest with you.
Right?
Like, I feel like I'm cool with Royce. I'm cool with Prince. If Oubre came, I wouldn't be mad. Like, he would still have that dog, so I know personally I would enjoy him, even though when it comes to shooting, I'm like, oh my god, I cringe a little bit. I'm good on. I'll be happy with Royce O'Neal too. So I don't know. I feel like the Knicks is a name I'm going to say. I feel like everybody's gonna be like, oh my god. But the Knicks have this thing where they just, when you hear a name, I just expect to keep hearing it. Gordon Hayward. I would not be surprised if the Knicks went after Gordon Hayward. We went after him when he went to the Hornets. I feel like I heard his name mentioned before he went to OKC. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially because he can play make still. He has a little bit of game, but you already know he's kind of old at this point.
If you dust off NBA 2K7 and you do create a player and you do all the levels at the very bare minimum, that's how Gordon Hayward played in last year's playoff series for OKC.
That is true.
His minutes were so ass when he played. I think he was initially in Coach D's rotation and he was getting between 7 or 10. By game 3 of the first round, he was out completely. Mm-hmm. You only saw him in like spot blowout minutes. He was awful. 3-point shot, ice cold, playmaking, cooked, washed as a cone on defense. It was real bad. OKC fans were calling for his head. And Presti admitted in the today interviews it was a mistake trade that he shouldn't have made it. I pray God that Leon Rose watches OKC basketball. Do not be fooled by the name. The name has none of the muster that it used to.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I was happy we missed out on him when he went to, I was like,
I never seen a relationship sour like that. Like he when he is mad at OKC, OKC is mad at him. Like, he is not returning. It's just like,
I wonder if he's in the league after that is the real question.
Yeah, he's upset. He's upset.
I don't think he will be. I don't think anyone signs him.
Yeah, and like what Lee said, you know it's bad when after the season's over, the GM comes out and he says that it was a mistake to trade for that player. That's when you know it's bad.
Yep.
That's what happens when you have so many assets. You just do whatever you want. Yeah. Yo, OKC has just assets on assets on assets. It's like,
take L's.
Yeah, you can take L's and keep it moving with no repercussion, no worries. They still got so much cap space. They still have 100 million first round picks. It was just like, okay, my bad.
Yep. You still got to the second round.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, I'm very happy that we have Leon Rose and not Steve Mills, because if Steve Mills was star GM, there's about 5 guys on this free agent list that would be getting the bag from the Knicks front office. I'm looking at names like DeMar DeRozan, hey, great player, but we would be paying DeMar DeRozan like $30 million to be in the second apron, bro. Like, this is some insane. I just looked at Bruce Brown, like, he would get the bag with Steve Mills, man. I mean, this is like, this scary. KCP, $15-18 million a year, just because he's been in the finals and he wants that finals magic to infect the locker room. This is like, I'm so glad he's gone, man. Leon Rose for the win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, I feel like we really talked about everything we wanted to. I know Lee wanted to bring up something. I'll give the floor to Lee.
Yeah, appreciate that. I've been thinking about trades. I think the show does a real good job in general. Of not going off the deep end on trades or putting all the mock NBA 2K type BS during the season when games are going on. But now that it's off season, this is the perfect time to at least consider, have fun, realize that it's fun, and not take it too seriously. And there's two trades. So I'm like, hey, I'm thinking like Leon Rose. I'm not thinking like Steve Mills or like 2015 Lee Escobedo who wants nothing but blockbuster trades for the Knicks, star chasing. I'm thinking about like either on the fringe. I have one trade on the fringe, and I have one trade that would affect the starting lineup. And I think they're two very viable pieces, two pieces that potentially could be available. And I think we have the assets to get either, but not both. The cheap one is Alex Caruso. I feel like Alex Caruso is tailor made in the lab to be a Tibbs guy. Love his dog mentality, first team all defense, shooting decent from the field. He kind of reminds me of what TJ McConnell is for Indiana. I think he could be for us, a secondary playmaker off the bench, and someone who can get his own shot as the fifth bailout option in a broken play, or great 24-second shot clock violation. So I liked him. I think he just fit in pretty smooth with 10, 12 minutes a game, but it might mean a different role for Deuce McBride, and that's something you might have to just swallow. Maybe he goes down the rotation a peg or out of it, maybe for a stretch to see how he fits, which I would not want to do because I love the growth that he showed last year. But Caruso is a championship piece. I think he'd be like not Derek White, but Derek White light for us if we were to be able to get into the playoffs. And then the big swing is Dejounte Murray. I'm looking at what this team needs. We need more playmaking. We need two-way guys who can play both sides of the floor and play both sides of the floor for all 35 minutes or 38 minutes they're playing, or in some cases 42. And I liked how Dejounte Murray has a potential for that. We haven't seen it in a few seasons. We haven't seen it in winning basketball, but I think Tibbs can bring the best out of him, and he feels like a better fit, size-wise, skill set-wise, than Donovan Mitchell ever did. And I would be happy if the Knicks did either. I'm hearing very conflicting reports that this might only be a season of fringe moves. I'm also hearing if there's a summer to do it, it's this summer. So that if I look at the landscape and I think like Leon, those are the two that make the most sense for me to want to go after.
Okay. All right. I think I'm definitely in love with the idea of Alex Caruso on his team. He's one of those guys where I necessarily don't want to trade for another guard, but I'm also accepting of the fact that if he's here, I'm probably going to cheer my ass off. It's like I don't necessarily want to trade for him, but if he was here, I wouldn't be mad. Like I almost feel like almost the way I kind of felt like when Quickie was here. I'm just like, man, I don't want to block this person's development. This person, in this case, would be Miles McBride. Like we might have some new Miles McBride, and bringing Caruso here might block what we have with Miles McBride. So I think that's my thought process with it. I just really want to see what we have with McBride. I think you know what it is with McBride. The defense is there. The 3-point shooting in the playoffs to me was an eye opener because it's one thing that during the season to do that in the playoffs with pressure it kind of shows me what he's made of. And to me, I just want his playmaking to improve, and for his playmaking to improve, I think he needs more reps. So the more guards you put it in front of him, the less likely it is to happen. So that's my thought process. Not that I hate Caruso. I think every Knicks fan would love Caruso, but I just want to see that blossom personally.
Yeah, me personally, these are two players that I don't really see an issue with either way. Caruso definitely, I think, he fits the fabric of the Knicks. His playing style, defensively a dog. He can shoot the three. Like Lisa, first team all defense. I definitely think he fits the fabric of the Knicks. And Dejounte Murray, I was definitely on board bringing him at the trade deadline because I felt like when Quickly left, Knicks need another playmaker. A guy that when Brunson's out of the games, he can play make and create his own shot for the players on the team as well. So I was definitely on board with Dejounte Murray. But after looking at the team after the trade deadline and how they were set up, I think it was clear that the major need was another wing player, just another wing player that can do similar things to OG on the court. Because once OG got injured, you saw how erratic the team was. the team wasn't, it's kind of like as if, like sometimes like when you're building something and just because you don't have one nail in the right place, it's like it messes with the integrity of that object that you're building. And that's how it was with OG. So my first priority would be wing, before I even think about bringing in another guard per se. And I do think if the Knicks do go that route, I would like to see the Knicks still bringing a wing alongside of that. And I think another thing too is the development of McBride. I do think it can work to where McBride can possibly get minutes even if they bring in Caruso or Dejounte Murray. It just depends on, how heavy are the Knicks going to be in that guard position, because if it's to a point where it's like, okay, you can't bring in two guards off the bench. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can have, like, for example, if Caruso's here, you can have Caruso as one guard off the bench, McBride as the second guard off the bench, to give Brunson West and DiVincenzo rest. Or if Dejounte Murray is there, it could be situations where you could just mix and match. You know what I mean? Sometimes you may have Dejounte Murray and Brunson out there. Sometimes you may have Dejounte Murray or Dejounte Murray and McBride out there. Like, you can just mix and match players. Sometimes Brunson, McBride, depending on matchups. So I mean, I still think McBride can get minutes even if they bring in either one of those guys. But at the same time, I'm like, seeing how McBride developed last season, is kind of like, I do also, a part of me does want to see him as, the main guard off the bench, just to see how he handles that role going forward. So it's one of those things where it's like, if the Knicks go after either player, I'm not going to complain about that. Hell no. Why the hell would I complain? I mean, you bring Caruso, Dejounte Murray, two guys that can definitely help this Knicks roster. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I do want to see how McBride can develop as a lead guard off the bench as well. So it's one of those conflicting things where it's like, am I cool with it? Yes, but at the same time, like, I want to see I want to see what McBride can do if you give him the keys to that second bench unit.
I'm probably the only person who's gonna say no on Caruso, and I love Caruso the player, but he just has 1 year left, and he has outperformed his contract. And I don't know if he got an extension from there, would he be like an $18 million a year player, like beyond this year? So I mean, is it a 1 year rental? Then you have to give him up, or can you actually extend him while you're extending Brunson, while you're trying to extend Randall? That's my question. But if I had to give up a pick for a guard, Jose Alvarado, I give a first round pick for Jose Alvarado, New Yorker.
I'd be excited for New York.
Defender. Yeah.
You know what, to me too, I wouldn't mind Dejounte. I feel like I would lean more towards Dejounte. Although I still have question marks. I still like Dante at the starting two. Like, my mind is like, I want Dante at starting two unless we have some all-star two guard. I just like that chemistry and how willing he is just to catch and shoot and give Brunson that spacing. For me, Dejounte be like, man, if the Dejounte on the bench would be my dream scenario, but I just know that's not realistic. Like, that man wants to start. And when I'm looking at the Cavs situation and how they performed when, like, Garland was out, you saw I'm like Fritz now. I forgot the man's name. Donovan Mitchell. You seen Donovan Mitchell first when Garland was out. I kind of feel like the same thing happened with Dejounte. Like, Trey went out, Dejounte seemed like he was starting to ascend. So it's like, I feel like he's even more effective with just the ball in his hand, not playing off the ball, which makes me wonder. It makes me wonder. Like, I love the idea of Dejounte here, though. But I'm like, man, will that fit? Will that mess up our chemistry? I go back and forth.
Dejounte was very frustrated last year in the playoffs because nobody else is playing defense.
Well, so he's not gonna have that problem here.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if he would actually enjoy playing with other people who play defense, and would that help him out on offense? That he doesn't have to work so hard. I don't know. You sometimes you don't know. It's one of those weird chemistry things that you don't know until you see it.
And it's also one of those things like the Hawks are blowing it up, and I feel like the price tag is going to drop slightly from when his price tag was during the trade deadline. So when Greg Hatch wrote this article about free agents, I mean not free agents, players that the Knicks can trade for. Dejounte was on that list. I can 100% see the Knicks making a move for him just because of our history. And like I said, I can see the price tag dropping from last year's from February to now. I can see the price tag dropping. So yeah.
JL has made some fantastic counterpoints to going after both of them. Dejounte, I agree with you. I am also more on board. There are some definite and we've talked about this like sweet melting pot between Hart, Devo, and Brunson that allow all three to play higher than what their floor would have been otherwise on any other team.
Yeah.
It's that continuity where it's just this vacuum that creates really high levels on both ends of the floor because they know each other so well. I'm 100% in agreement, which is why I'm not really loud and vocal on a Dejounte Murray pickup because it could really mess up chemistry. Not just him starting over Devo, but would Devo accept the bench role at this point now after all the momentum that's been built between him and Brunson as a backcourt? Caruso's a safer option. And I think about the lack of a wing. And I guess the only thing I would look at is Boston's success this season with playing a very similar high frequency drop coverage on defense with KP. And they employ a very not small, but mildly undersized or normal undersized backcourt in terms of height with Derek White and Drew Holiday, who give up some length and wingspan, but are both really high IQ, really hot, smart, active defenders that have a really high motor. I think that also describes Alex Caruso. And I imagine him and McBride off the bench really being able to lock up some opposing backcourts. And it all really depends on, does Julius Randle hold up his own as a defensive part of a unit? That's where when OG went out, we didn't have Randall. We were relying on Precious Achiuwa or Jericho Sims, which is even huger drop off. But if Randall is locked in and plays up to his potential defensively, then we could be very similar to Boston, where he takes on a Tatum role. And when we end up finding switches and pick and rolls, can Caruso, the same way that White is, guard or front the bigger players and cut off their entry passes and get them out of their sweet spots. That'll be key. And then we can still live with two rim protectors and a slightly undersized rotation on the bench and starting five. So it's possible. I think it can work. And I think Tibbs and Caruso would definitely make it work. I mean, they would be on the same page, absolutely locked in. He would do whatever is asked of him. But the wing is important. I agree. But I think Caruso is such an elite defender. It's worth the risk.
And Lee brings up a good point because watching Caruso last season, although he's just a 6'5" guard, like I've seen him guard bigger players, and he's very capable of doing that. He's very capable of giving bigger players a bit of hell, on the defensive side of the ball.
He did to
Yeah, so although he's not the stereotypical, wing where he's like 6'7", 6'8", with that long wingspan, can guard multiple positions. Like Caruso is a defender where it's like, although it's not ideal to put him on a bigger guy, but he can hold his own. You know what I mean? So I do think him and Derek White are similar in that way on the defensive side of the ball. And I believe thinking about it, it can work. But Fritz also brought up good points as well, regarding, he only has 1 year left in his contract and how much is he going to demand in free agency and things of that nature as well. So that makes it kind of tricky, but Caruso would be an ideal like pickup, if it can work out to where the Knicks can keep him after, his contract expires. So like I said, I really don't have an issue with either player. And speaking of Dejounte Murray as well, chemistry might be an issue, but I also agree that it's also one of those things where I think it's one of those things where it's like it can either work really well or it could just blow up, depending on, so it's like one of those things where it's like, are the Knicks willing to take the risk? Because Dejounte Murray, I like the way he played in San Antonio, where Pop was able to unlock him. I feel like Thibs can do the same, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think he can get the best out of Dejounte Murray, but it's just a matter of, is it gonna go really right or is it gonna go really wrong? And that's the only thing with Dejounte Murray.
Yeah, and he has that attitude that I like too. Like there's these guys who are just naturally dogs and they go after it and they don't take mess. Like he's one of those guys that I really love his attitude on a team. So
All
I'll be
facts.
open to that. It's fine. Yo, and I'm gonna bring up a name that I brought up earlier before we started. I know it's not gonna happen, but I've been watching the Clippers and watching Paul George not agree on the contract once again. I'm just like, man, if we had Brunson with Paul George and OG with Brandel, physically, if Paul George is healthy, of course, he was relatively healthy last season. Physically, we would be smacking teams physically. We would be a matchup nightmare just because just out of fierce size and defensive ability. I think we would run teams over. It would be scary for teams.
I just have a question on that. Like, when you envision that, are you envisioning OG at the 2?
No,
I think I'm envisioning PG at the 2.
exactly. I'm envisioning PG at the 2, OG at the 3.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think it's just that PG. You know, he's not just like a 2 in height, but like he's a stocky guy. So a lot of 2s aren't that stocky. So he can still mold teams over. Is really what I'm saying. And then he kind of has that thing where he can play the background, and then he can run your second unit as well. So I think as far as the archetype, he's pretty much perfect for the Knicks. But I already know the situation. Fritz could probably explain it better than anybody than I can. But the Clippers are in the second apron.
Yeah.
So they really couldn't trade. Go ahead, Fritz. You can break it down.
Yeah, so they're in the second apron. Paul George is being very consistent. He wants around 40, and he wants it for 4 years. With his current age, he talked when they were talking to the Knicks last year, it was 40 years, 4 years. Like, he is not coming off that number. Like, Clippers aren't having a good time with him. I think it could be a situation where Philly may become a possibility where, I mean,
Yeah.
but that's a lot of money. And at his age and his past injuries, do you want to commit 4 years to Paul George?
Yeah. The 4 years is insane.
Yeah.
Play team option year 3 minimum. That gotta be at least team option year 3. Like at least, because I'm not doing that. That's crazy. Not all guaranteed. Nah, that's nuts. And
Yo, PG.
go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, yo, PG, I have a solution for you. I've come to bargain. Look, you're looking for a ring, right? Just come through to the Knicks. Mid-level exception. You know, James Dolan got you. You know, James Dolan's gonna find ways for you to earn that $40 million that you're looking for per year in endorsements and things of that nature. Just come through. Mid-level exception. We win like 2-3 weeks within that time span. Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on, Pete.
Yeah. The other part too is even if the Knicks did want him, we couldn't outright sign him for that much. We have to do a sign and trade. So he would have to be like, I don't want to do it, stay with you guys, and then do a sign and trade with the Knicks for the money that he don't want anyway, which doesn't even really make sense.
It doesn't, but yeah, I'm praying. I'm just sending prayers to the basketball gods. Make something happen.
Yeah. Like,
so Randall's off the table. Like, I'm just to be clear with everybody, is Randall
yes,
Paul George?
Randall's off the
table.
table.
Yo, I'll do 3 years. Is Randall the sacrifice?
Like, nah, yeah, Randall's off the table to me for a few reasons. One, the thing with Randall is he still has a shoulder injury, but at the same time, he is also multiple years younger than Paul George.
Most definitely.
Which means, for me, Randall is off the table, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're talking like 3 teams, and the new rules make it so tough to get 3 teams involved. Like, It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about how that happens. That means all the 3 teams involved have to be like under cap teams for this to be real smooth. That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like if you're in the first apron, second apron, like those type of teams can't trade. They can't trade with each other. So
You only
I think currently they
Hmm.
think there's 10 teams that aren't able to trade with each other for this offseason.
which means when you're looking at the landscape, the teams who can make trades with each other are what? Wait, Magic, OKC, 76ers, Toronto, off the top of my head.
So so Clippers are definitely second tier. So if they want to mess with us, they want to trade with us, we would have to be under first apron. We would have to be under first apron. We couldn't even trade with them. So
I mean, we'll be able to do it before we just hypothetically.
yeah, so
before we did all the moves, if we did that move first and then did all the other
yeah, it's kind of like you kind of renounce and you do it first.
Yeah.
And you have to put everything in the right order.
Yeah.
But you put one thing out of order, it's all screwed up.
Crazy.
So I have a hypothetical question for you, Fritz. So say for example, the Knicks were to go that route. Say that before the Knicks do any other moves, they decide to go after Paul George. What would the Knicks have to send out for that trade to make it work?
It's based on the number he signs for because he's unrestricted. Okay. So if he wants 30, if the Knicks it would have to be within 10% of 30 if he signs for 30. So it has to be like 27 or 33. Actually, since they're second, it would have to be 27. We would have to give him between 27 and 30 if he signed for 30.
Okay, got it.
So that means Josh Hart, Mitch. Yeah. That's still oof.
It's tough because this is when they're opening their new arena. So, their owner wants like a team to put on the floor for the new arena.
They're screwed pretty much. That's what it looks like. That's all. That's what I read. I read they're screwed and we should probably be worried about the 76ers. That's what I say. That's what it's looking like right now. Because I can confidently say that if we had our whole squad, the 76ers had our whole squad, I would still feel confident we beat the 76ers. If they add Paul George, that is another story.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty clear who the top 3 teams in the East would be. It would be the Celtics, Knicks, and the Sixers. But, oh, boy, that battle.
Yeah.
To try to get out the East would be crazy.
Yeah. For sure. All right.
I'm 100% against Paul George. I had no interest. I don't want to bring anyone that's older than Jalen Brunson. I want to keep that window as wide as possible, pause, and make sure that we're not adding anyone who's going to be shrinking his prime. And, I mean, you're talking about in 2 years, Paul George, 36. You also can point to, has he really impacted winning since he's left Indiana? I would say no. I know he had the MVP year in OKC, but I mean, once he was on this Clipper team, that team could win a championship. This team should have won a championship for the last 5 seasons since they've been together, and he really hasn't had a huge impact in the playoffs. He's actually had some really bad playoff series as well. I wasn't too impressed with the defense he played in this playoff series. I don't know, man. I think the idea of Paul George is better than Paul George actually is, and to me, that's a name that we would have maybe pursued 10 years ago, 15 years ago, not now.
So you're saying no to Kevin Durant?
Yeah, definitely. No. I'm saying hell no. Definitely not trading Randall for Paul George either.
I'm saying no to Kevin Durant off principle. You cannot say we're not cool, then leave and then come back. I
agree with that too.
I already know Fritz feels like I feel like Fritz wants Kevin. I feel like he does.
I would.
I already knew. Look at his face. The way he smirked.
I will say this though. If you're being objective about it, Kevin Durant would be a perfect partner to Jalen Brunson.
Basketball wise, it makes sense.
If you're talking strictly basketball, he would be the ideal partner next to Jalen Brunson just for the simple fact he does not demand the ball. He it's just the fact he doesn't demand the ball, and like he allows like players to like be themselves on the offense side of the ball, meaning that he picks his spots to score. So Jalen Brunson would still be running the offense, and then he would just get the ball to Kevin Durant in spots, and then Durant would go to work. You know what I mean? So he wouldn't disrupt the offense. You know what I
I
mean? Like
agree 100%.
he would just slide in and just play his role. That's why I say he would be the perfect partner next to Jalen Brunson. If it's just basketball related,
I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I am still competitive, damn it.
I know.
Plus, he's just so fickle. Like, how can you like beg for something and then one out in that amount of time? Like,
Yep.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just weird to me.
Yeah, I can see. If he gets a nosebleed, he's gonna want one out, and then we're gonna have to trade him to somebody else. And I'm trading to OKC, maybe. I don't know. All
That's where
right.
you should.
I'm good though. We've talked about everything we need to talk about. Anybody else have anything else to add? Nope. Cool. Well, that's the show. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Shout out to our lady Ebony who couldn't make it today. Because she was handling personal business. But I hope you enjoyed the show. Hit that like button and subscribe button. And we'll be back talking Knicks basketball. Okay. Ryan G, let them know where they can find you, man.
You can find me on Twitter at RyanGKOT. You can also find me on Instagram at Sir G is chilling.
Sir G is chilling.
That's SIR. G is CHILLIN.
All right. Lee, where can they find you, sir?
On Twitter @_ Lee Escobedo, LEEESCOBEDO.
Cool. All right. And my guy, Fritz, Mr. NBA Economy, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter, Fritz Handles, also on YouTube, NBA Economy Show.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Getting ready for that draft.
Yes, sir. All right. That's the show. Thank you guys for watching. We out of here. Peace.